picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Well, welcome back. It's time for another weekend's work of fun here at Aztek Dummy. It is Friday the 13th, which means we're getting closer and closer to Wonderfest. And that means I've got to get cracking and working and harder at getting the eagle done. So made a lot of good progress last week. We're going to make a lot more good progress this weekend. Let me show you the current state of where we is. Okay, as you can tell by this pile of mess, we got much work ahead of us this weekend. There's remains of the raptor, and it's the birds everywhere. There's raptors and eagles, and I honestly did not make that connection until last week when I was posting the video that both of the projects I was working on were avian in nature. I suppose I should dig out a Romulan bird of prey just to complete the trifecta of bird-themed ships. Or Klingon warbird or something. So, what we need to do this week is we are going to concentrate on these guys. Some people call them the shoulders. Some people call them just the quad landing strut things. We're going to concentrate on these and the landing gear this weekend, and probably get the front and back cages built so that we will have all of the framework. I'm going to start on the head. I'm not going to get the cabin painted this weekend. I'm almost certain of that. But I could start on the head and maybe do some more construction, assembly line construction on the engines and all of that good nonsense. So let's get to it. Well, good morning. It's Saturday. Time to get back to work. But as you can see, once again, my table has descended into madness and chaos. Have parts of two different kits on here, so let me spend a good half hour straightening this up, and we'll get on to today's work. Okay, a bit of explanation is in order. You can see the rather ugly seams of the foot pads being bondoed, and I'm going to sand those off in a bit. As far as painting, here's the trick. I am going to, you can see these have been painted gray to start with. And then I am going to paint black over the area where these, I call it a Maltese cross. It accentuates the four thrusters. I'm going to paint those black, and I'm going to paint, oops, I almost gave it away. I'm going to paint this cross area black here. Now they call for that to be decals in the kit, and they provide you decals for that, but decals that big always make me nervous. A, because they can have a tendency to tear or fold over on themselves. And B, it's a flat area. It's just not necessary. You could paint that really easily. And C, once you have a decal that big, it's tough to weather over top of it. They just don't ever look the same as a painted surface. So here's the box, just your typical shoulder box. Paint those four shapes black, paint the bottom black. And then what we're going to do is we're going to mask those shapes like that to keep them black when I paint the whites and grays over top of it. And then when we peel that off, that black will remain. And it's easier to put just one shape down than it is to try to mask around all those little corners. So I'm going to be including these cross shapes in the templates as well as the shapes that go on here. So let me get some black down on that. And at the same time, work on some of these other parts that get sprayed black. Now, the head is different. It's actually the opposite. What I'm going to do is spray paint all of this white. Now, I've included the bottom windows, if you were. I'm not using them as windows as such, but I'm going to paint this whole thing white. And then what we're going to do is mask the tiny areas here. And let me get my little pointer shapey thing out. We're going to mask these little stripes here that indicate that framework of that window. We're going to mask that off to keep it white, and then we're going to perimeter mask around the openings and then spray black into that. Kind of the opposite. We are spraying the white first here and the black first here. So that's how it's going to be. Now you can see a bunch of other multiples, parts of multiples plus the Raptor kit, but parts of multiple things that I have done in mass production to facilitate their building. It's easier just to pull them all out, do them at the same time, and then put them aside. And these are the inside cages for the what I'm calling the Bobo cages, because if you look on the side of the framework, you see what could be a BO. So I'm calling them Bobo frames. But before you put the Bobo frames around the outsides of these, you have to paint them and detail them. So that's what's happening there. I realized that last remark might have needed some clarification, so this is why I'm calling them Bobo cages. B-O-B-O. That's why I'm calling them Bobo cages. It's easier for me to remember. But now that these have had a gray primer on them, I can touch them with the light gray that I'm using for my top coats, and by lightly painting them, I will maintain all of those nice details and shadows, especially on the inside. So these wrap around these guys. Well, the table looks like it makes a little more sense now. I've been doing some work off camera, I hate to say tedious work, but at least repetitive work. So the tanks are all being glued together, and get ready to go out for some lunch. Still Saturday morning, but before I go, I want to spray a round of black paint so that I can be letting that dry whilst I do other things. And the black paint, like I said, is going to go here and here, and on the inside of the engine bells, and a couple other spots, and a couple places on the Raptor, so that can be drying while I'm out. So let me go get those parts all together for you. Okay, I've blackened the appropriate amounts on the shoulder pods. It's still a little wet, that's why you see that gloss there. That will flatten out. But blacked over the what I call the Maltese cross there, the 4-quadrant thing, and then blackened that recess in there. And now that that's been done, I also took some time and blackened the engine inserts and some other bits, and did some pre-shading on these, just where the grills and vents are, so that when I lightly spray the white over top of that, I'll see more shadows into the recesses. Like I said, a little bit of pre-shading. And now that that's all been done, I'm going to go grab myself some lunch. And I am back from lunch, and yes, you can see that has in fact dried now. So I am ready to mask these. No, I'm not. I'm going to let that sit for a good long while. The next thing I'm going to do is to use the white that I bought. It's actually, I'm sorry, it is this light gray, Model Master light gray, which is my base color for all of the Eagle. And I am going to bring up the whites on this, and then get it ready for detailing. Okay, I've just put the first pass of the light gray over top of this, and you can see where, yes, the shadows and shading is still there largely. I will go in with some smoke and accentuate the crevices, but I am mottling the surfaces so it's not all one big monolithic gray or monolithic white. So now that I've got those bits done, I need to turn my attention to all of these girders. Now, as I was saying back before the phone rang and I had to stop, if there was one problem with this kit, I would say that in one word, it is all the flash. You may think you have got everything sanded down and smooth, but as soon as you pop a coat of primer on it, or a piece of finished paint on it, the seams really jump back out. So you got to be extra diligent to make sure you get rid of all the little nasty buggers. And I really don't know why that is. I've actually seen resin kits that have come out of the molds with less flash than this. I don't know whether it's the quality of the molds or the speed at which they were taken out or what, but really have had to do a lot more sanding on all of these little girders than one might suspect you would. You could see them if you look across there, all those nasty seams. Now, you have to justify it in your own brain as to whether or not it's worth getting rid of all of those, but it's one of these things that if you don't do it while it's out and available and you hate it later, well, you're never going to get back into it. So I'm going to take some light sandpaper and just hit everything one more time, and then go over it with one more coat of the gray paint before I start putting in the highlights and the shadows. So that should take me another good while. Well, I don't know about you, but I was getting kind of buggy working on all those girders and white and grays and all of that. So I needed to take a break and put that all aside and pull the Raptor back out and do some work on it. At least a little bit more colorful, if not wildly Technicolor. But I'm going to do some more work on the consoles and cabin, and maybe get that sealed up. Wouldn't that be fun? Got to paint some details in there, but I think what I want to do now is get the main console colors in, and then perhaps see where we go from there. And here you can see what I have done to the exterior of the Raptor. Taken the buff, the straight full strength buff, and just indicated some panel lines with some carding. And yes, it's a little bit drastic now and a little bit much, and it's going to get toned down when I put the darker brown wash on it. But I wanted to put the wash over top of all of the plating rather than putting the wash on and then trying to indicate plating, because that's not how you put things together. You put things together with plates first, and then it gets dirty and washed and gets weathered, and that's how it works. So now that I've got all these things drawn in, now remember, I still have the gray shapes underneath here. Once I'm happy with all of the colors on the hull, I will remove the masks and then stain or use a smoke wash over all of it at the same time. But first I'm going to do some brown washes on it. Then I will pull that off, then pull the masks off, and then I will put the black streaks and laser hits and that sort of stuff on it. As far as the interior goes, I checked some references online and decided to go my own way anyway, and added some OD green to the cockpit. Not only is it reminiscent of actual US cockpits that have more green in them like this, but it adds some much needed color to the inside of this. Now, because the set had all kinds of lights in it, and the instrument panels were lit, and there was winkies and blinkies, that introduced a lot of color into the cockpit. But my model is not going to have all of that. Yes, I'm going to try to indicate some little dots here and there, but for the most part, it's going to be static, and because of that, I need to add some overall color to that. And once you see the pilots, I have to finish painting them, but once you see everything in there, hopefully it will be colorful enough without lit panels. But I have kind of drabbed down the console in the back, and again, that was one of those cases where, yes, it's all of the lit screens that give you the color. The wall and the consoles themselves are not very colorful themselves. So that looks good. I'll do some brushes, some dry brushes and some touching up there before I install it, because it's going to be holy Ned to try to reach it with a brush after it's in. So we'll leave that. I've got these, I don't know what these things are. Probably some sort of thrusters, the vertical takeoff thrusters. But I have just hand painted those above the. Oh, I need to paint that gray as well. I did that on the underside of the wings for the landing gear wells on the two wings, but I forgot to do it here. So let me whip out the brush and go do that. Now my mission is to build this Raptor pretty much out of the box, not adding anything to it or taking anything away from it, just to show since it's a test shot, I want to show exactly what's in the kit. But the only exception of that I made is adding that piece to this wall. It's just a piece of flat sheet stock that's got a texture to it, a slat pattern, because I know from having built other versions of this kit, or of this subject, plus looking at the references of the actual cockpit, that this is a ribbed textured wall here. So easy enough just to cut a little piece of sheet stock and stick it over that, and I'll paint it up later. But it fits in there quite nicely, just like that. That's not so shabby. Almost there. These are just dry fit together. Wanted to show you how the overall look of it is. Let me check that white balance. Okay, I think one last bit of construction for this evening. Not finished painting by any means, but one last bit of construction, and that's going to be to make these cages for these guys. Now, I probably will just use the top to position the bottom ones and not glue the bottom ones in yet, or not glue them to the top yet, but at least glue it to the bottom. So hopefully this will all make sense. And this is the last bit of taping or templating I will do for this evening. Still got plenty of time tonight, but I'm going to take a little bit of a break. I've been working at this all day. These are the shoulder pieces with the cross here taped off or masked off, and the bottom area masked off. So now I am at liberty to spray this whole Magilla the white color, and the knowing that the black is protected underneath. A lot easier than trying to paint that those sharp edges in black later. Just paint them black first, protect them, and then paint the white over top. Don't work hard, work smart, I always say. And what I've got here is these cages, just taping them together to keep pressure on them. I have glued the horizontal pins, or the vertical pins, into the horizontal, only on the bottom. I have not done it to the top yet because I want to go into this inside cage with the smoke and dirty it down a little bit more before I close it up with these bars. But I wanted to get at least the top part of the bottom part of the cage attached. Welcome back. It is Sunday morning, and before I toddle off to service this morning, I figured the best thing I could do would be to go ahead and get a coat of white on these 4 pieces so that they can be drying whilst I'm out. So I've got the brush all cleaned, which in itself is a nasty thing that I hate doing, and everybody who has ever had to fix one of my airbrushes knows I don't clean them very well. So when I do, it's few and far between. So I had to haul them out and give them a good scrubbing. So let's see if it makes it work any better. Okay, well, it's taken much hand-to-hand combat with the airbrush. I don't know. I think perhaps I had the combination of wrong needle with wrong head. I bow to people who know more about airbrushes than I do. To me, they're a necessary evil. But I have got the Com Art. I used some fertile soil, and then I used some Rojas brown to put some streaks and some shadows in, and basically to knock down some of that really bright sandy beach color that I had for a reason. It was to make some lighter panels, but that was never going to be the final color. This is very much closer to what I wanted. It is a darker brown, but without being too monolithically ugly dirt brown. It's got some highlights and some shadows in it, like you can see on that panel there. But sometimes you got to go light to go dark, and that's what I was doing here. Now that this is done, I'm going to let it set for a while and dry, and then I'm going to peel up these template paint masks that are covering over the walkways and this this gray trim, and set this aside and turn my attentions back towards the Bobo cages on the Eagle, now that I think I've got the airbrush at least sorted. Okay, it took a bit of finagling and struggling and cleaning brushes, which I hate. But I've got the white on the 4 pods, and I've had a chance to dry. That's why I'm handling them. You can see it's not a complete plastering coverage, not real heavy, but this is the first coat of a gray, of the light gray over top of the templates that have, if you remember, the black underneath. So I'm going to set these aside and get back to work on what I'm calling the Bobo cages. And again, I call them Bobos because that to me spells Bobo. I have dirtied up the interior boxes on both front and back box, just with some transparent smoke and some considerable airbrushing, but just dirtied it up a bit, and I will go back and maybe hit a highlight or two before I'm getting ready to close those up. But I'm appreciating the back plate for the capsule, and I'm appreciating some bits on here. And what I'm doing to the cages themselves is I'm just putting a template down and spraying a little smoke over top of it. And what that's doing is, it's how you can see what's happening here. I don't know how subtle that is on camera, but you can see where I'm just throwing a little bit of color, and I'm just randomly spacing, like just randomly spacing that shape over it and spraying through it with a little bit of smoke. And when it comes back, it's got just a little bit of darkness going on, just to break up all of that white so that it's not so medicinal looking. What I'm doing now is I'm trying to age up some of these greeblies that will go in the boxes inside the cages, and it's a delicate balance. I want it to look used without looking abused. I want it to give some color in there, because this kit, or this subject, is a symphony of grays, and what I'd like to do is introduce some color so that you have some visual interest inside of those cages without it looking like, you know, poor Carter never cleaned his ships when he was done. So I'm going to overweather them, and I'm going to come back with a fine misting of the white and bring everything back out. But it's easier for me to put on too much and clean it off than it is to just put on a little, because I never get happy with it. So I am using a combination of a couple different ComArts, the the dark rust, the raw umber, and the old oil, and making a little slurry there that I'm slapping on and then wiping right back off. Okay, after many coats of white, which is actually a reefer white with a mix of aged white in it, so that it's a slightly warm white as opposed to all the cool whites I've been using. I'm little by little getting a handle on these girders. I know I've been harping on the flash problem with this kit, and I don't know whether it's, you know, baked into the kit or whether it was my pressing, but damn, every time I think I've got one, I hit it with a little bit of spray and it just jumps right out. And I think the spray actually accumulates on those flash lines, so I have to end up resanding, rebuffing them down, and replastering with paint, and it's a pain. It's a pain, I tell you. For this being only one color, it is really testing my patience as far as what I've got to do to get that color to lay down correctly. Okay, because I firmly believe that I could keep cleaning and sanding and painting these girder bits until the actual moon is burst out of the actual orbit, I'm going to call it. There's only so much of this I can take, and it's getting to the point of diminishing returns. So this is where I'm going to leave this for this week, and I'm going to let it sit up for a good long while. I have got these all whitened since the last you saw, and I'm going to let those dry at least overnight before I pull the templates off on those. I am happy with the boxes. I do a little bit of rusting and a little bit of weathering on those, and they're giving me a good contrast to the pearly white cages, which are still not going to be this pearly white when we're done. And I had hoped to get these guys put together this weekend, but really, as much work as these took to get into even as good shape as they are now, it took way too long. So that is where we're going to leave it. Started some preliminary work on the nose cone, the passenger, the pilot pod, whatever you want to call it. These guys took a lot more work and cleanup than really they should have, but they're done and ready to go. And there's the other two pods there. The third one back there. Let's see, the balls for the engines. I got a lot more work done. I just don't have a lot more work to show for it because it's cleaning and then whiting, and then cleaning and then whiting, and then cleaning and more whiting, and it's really kind of boring to look at. So not much to show at this point, but I'm going to gather up as much of it as I can and put it aside and try to do one last bit of work on the Raptor for this weekend, and then we'll call it a week. Here are some of the other bits of the Eagle, lest you thought I was only working on the cages this weekend. I've got the big fuel tanks sanded and primed and ready to be painted. The engine bells are all sanded and blacked because I want to put a alclad over those, so I need to have a good black base underneath them. This was the test case for the landing gear, so it's all together, but the other bits of landing gear have been puttied and sanded so as to get rid of that big gapping seam line there. Other parts of the other landing gear. So these I've been working on in between and betwixt the other bits when I get frustrated or bored with doing all that white and gray. I went out and did some black. So these are, like I said, almost ready to go. And now I'm just cleaning them up and getting them off the table for the weekend. There's the how the insert looks inside the engine bell. Not the easiest thing to get in there, by the way. Not the most intuitive thing. And of course, those all have to be oriented correctly, and I'll have to see how all of the engines, how these guys fit down first before I can twist that engine bell to be oriented correctly. Okay, I've just gone around this Raptor for the 90th time, adding and subtracting colors, and I'm finally happy with how it looks and the final finish of it. So what I'm going to do now is bravely remove these pieces of vinyl so that you can see the gray that's underneath. Then it'll just be a question of touching up this gray and then maybe putting one last smoke coat over it. So we'll be ready to button up the outside as soon as the inside is finished. Now I just went over the consoles one last time with a smoke to kind of settle in the cracks and stuff and kind of dull everything down. I know it's dull enough as it is, but without any lit consoles, that's probably pretty much where we're going to be. That's awfully shiny, so I'm going to hit that with a dust coat afterwards to knock the shine down. And then I will start putting on the little indicator lights with some red paint and some white paint and some yellow paint and stuff like that, which should be nice and shiny in comparison. So probably won't get to that tonight, but we will most definitely button up the finish here. Okay, now here's a scene you haven't seen yet. All the templates are off. The gray has been re-exposed. The bubble is in. Now this bubble is, being this whole kit is a test shot, I am willing to stake you dollars to donuts that this bubble has not been polished because the mold for it has not been polished, so it's not as clean and clear. And I've seen this before on other test shots. The final production mass-produced kit part is a lot cleaner and clearer than the test shot clear piece is. But I'm going to go see if I can find some polishing compound, maybe see if I can get that, I just poked it in, get that a little bit more cleaned up than it is, a little clearer than it is. But there she blows. And that's how the cookie crumbles. That's exactly how that mask should work to keep that nice and clean. And pop that back in place. And that gray around there and the gray here gets maintained. And you'll remember that was painted before the brown was put on. But that's how it works. Well, that's certainly a lot cleaner. I just had to clean the camera off. It had gotten some errant spray on it and was giving me a cloudy picture. Maybe you can see me cleaner now. Who knows? This is going to bring us to the end of another weekend. Great strides made on the Eagle, even though it was frustrating at times with all of the sanding and painting and sanding and painting ad nauseum. And great strides on the Raptor. The outside, I'm going to say, you know, outside of the final construction, the outside's pretty much done for what I can do now. I got no decals with this test shot, so all of the little no steps and all the other little rinky-dink decals are on the outside. I can't put on there because I don't have them. But working on the interior, almost have that ready to finish up, and then we can button up the whole thing, and then we'll call it done, and we'll put it in the done pile. But the Eagle is going along swimmingly. Got the big thing was getting these guys to the point where I could, if I wanted to, even just do it on camera right now. Go ahead and peel that bottom. Ooh, look at how nice that looks. Nice and fresh. Nice and fresh there. And doesn't need any stinking decals. And I can weather right over top of that. But nice and crisp. Now we'll see how I keep calling it the Maltese Falcon. Let's just see how, oh, look at that. Yeah, buddy. That's looking good. Let's just take the rest of these off on camera here. Pretty risky stuff because you never know. I mean, I'm very confident, but you never know for sure. So until, and I'm doing this on camera, making sure that you see that I'm not doing any quick changes. There you go. Just how it should be. And now I can weather over top of it because it's paint. It's not a stinking decal. So on that high note, we will turn off the camera for another week, and the next time you see me, it will be one more week closer to Wonderfest, and I am trying like all get out to get this template set ready so that I can debut it at Wonderfest. And as getting the other kits that I'm ready to take, I got to get those cleaned up and boxed up and ready to go. So I'm plenty busy. I don't know about you. So until next week, when we'll be right back at it, we're going to finish this Raptor easily, and we'll probably finish the Eagle, both of them. So until then, be good to each other, have a fun week, and I'll see you here next time.